Thank you. Great. Hi, I'm Zach Pollock, and for my psychology and film assignment, I've chosen to analyze the narrator, or Tyler Durden. The main character, I guess, is never given a name in the movie, so I'll be referring to him as the narrator, um, from the 1999 movie Fight Club. And throughout the film, this character struggles with insomnia and identity issues. And in my opinion, this culminates in a diagnosis of a severe dissociative identity disorder. So the character, the narrator, is depressed. He's insomnia ridden, and he's an office worker who feels trapped by his consumerist lifestyle. He has no meaningful relationships, and he describes his life in the movie as a copy of a copy of a copy. And this just emptiness and lack of sleep triggers a psychotic break where he splits his personality and he unconsciously creates an alter ego named Tyler Durden, who's charismatic, aggressive, and an anarchist, and he embodies like the confidence and masculinity that the narrator feels like he lacks. Um, so for my diagnosis, I have diagnosed the narrator with dissociative identity disorder. Culturally, how we view this disorder shifts dramatically depending on where we are. In many non-Western cultures, the presence of a distinct controlling entity might be interpreted as like a spirit possession rather than a medical condition. However, in this film's Western context, it's treated as a psychological break. And while dissociative identity disorder is a valid psychiatric diagnosis, often caused by trauma, media portrayals like the movie Fight Club heavily contribute to the stigma that people with dissociative identity disorder are like violent masterminds, when in reality, they're usually just victims of severe trauma and they're just trying to survive. Um, so according to the DSM, the primary criteria for dissociative identity disorder is the presence of two or more distinct personality stages. And this film shows this clearly. The narrator is like timid and like a rule-abiding guy, and his alter ego, Tyler Durden, is aggressive and charismatic and violent, and just the complete opposite of the narrator. And then the second key symptom is his recurrent amnesia. The narrator current like constantly loses time, and he wakes up in different cities with no memory of how he traveled there. And this type of profound amnesia, where you just like lose control and switch between identities, is a hallmark um, dysfunction for dissociative identity disorder patients, just like we see in the movie. But the character does lack one crucial piece of evidence for the typical diagnosis, which is a clear history of severe childhood trauma. Clinically, dissociative disorder, um, or dissociative identity disorder is almost exclusively caused by a repetitive and overwhelming trauma, often physical or sexual, before the age of 9. And in the film, the narrator's trauma is mainly presented as an existential boredom and an absent father. And he does mention his father leaving in the movie, but the movie never explicitly provides any evidence for severe abuse as a child, which is usually required. It's a 90 plus percent of cases of dissociative identity disorder has that. So we can't tell from the movie if that is or isn't a symptom for Tyler or for the narrator. Um, and then a treatment plan for this, or my proposed treatment plan would be a phase-oriented trauma therapy. So the first phase would be a safety and stabilization. So in the movie, Tyler, his alter ego, is preparing or planning like this big kind of domestic terrorism plan, and they would have to stop this from happening, obviously, which I think would just be the first thing is to stop the violence, try to maybe shut down the Fight Club. And then the second step after stopping the immediate danger would be trauma processing to walk through and identify why Tyler was created in the narrator's mind. And then the last part would be trying to integrate and merge the identities back together into the narrator. Um, so some ethical concerns. Um, I mean, treating the narrator has some massive ethical challenges. The biggest is, I guess, the duty to warn, because his alter ego Tyler is, like I said, planning large-scale domestic terrorism. So if he does disclose these plans in therapy, the therapist would be legally required to report him to authorities. And then, that would breach confidentiality and would probably, end the therapy. Um, And then also another barrier to treatment is that the narrator loves being Tyler. Like Tyler is, he says in the movie he's free in all the ways that you are not. And he says that he looks like he'd want to look. Like he really likes that alter ego he has. And he probably would resist the treatment because he doesn't want to lose that cool part of himself and go back to his just boring life. Some broader perspectives. Fight Club is a mixed bag regarding accuracy. It correctly portrays the amnesia and the distinct personality changes. However, it does dramatize the disorder by having the narrator like visually hallucinate Tyler as a separate person who he literally in the movie he like the narrator fights against Tyler Durden in a fight. So he's like completely hallucinating him and he got in a fight with his own alter ego. Um, and this is just a cinematic metaphor, and this is not like a clinical symptom of dissociative identity disorder. And the film's influence has been profound, but I wouldn't say problematic. It does glamorize mental illness as a form of like rebellion against society. And it also reinforces the dangerous stereotype that crazy people, or crazy, like, people are like violent, which in most cases just isn't true. When in reality, people with dissociative identity disorder are far more likely to hurt themselves realistically than anybody else. And then here are my references.